Welcome to our house, the House of Fi. At the House of Fi, we are all about achieving financial independence for families. Wherever you are in your financial independence journey, we want our house to be a place where you can learn and get inspired. If you are a parent on the journey to Fi, then come on in. We're glad that you're here. Here are your hosts, Wendy and Tamika.
Welcome back, House of Fi family. I'm Wendy, and on the line is also my fabulous co-host, Tamika.
Hi, everyone.
Today we are talking with Tinian Crawford. Tinian blogs at DIY to Fi, and we're so excited to talk to him today to learn about what he is all about and what he is putting out there for the Fi community. Tamika, can you just tell us a little bit more about Tinian?
Yes. Tinian, or Captain DIY, is the illustrious author behind DIY to Fi, a blog designed to share the power of DIY knowledge and skills as a pillar of Fi. With the help of guest experts and years of personal trade experience, DIY2Fi.com presents the tools, tips, and tricks to help you learn skills and growth mindset to build a solid confidence base and maybe even conjure up a side hustle or two. So Tinian, thank you for coming to the show. I love your blog posts. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm an electrician by trade, and I work for a local university during the day, and I have a business as an electrician on the side that I do nights and weekends. And raising a couple of kids, got a beautiful wife, and got a nice little spot out in the woods of Western Massachusetts.
Awesome. You're in Massachusetts, just like me.
That's right.
Let's see. When did you begin your fire journey?
So our fire journey began about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years now. It was February of 2017. My wife was going out for a walk, and she made it about 100 yards from the house before she slipped on some ice. And she fell and hit her head hard, got a severe concussion, and was basically told by the doctors that she couldn't look at any screens, read any books, or think for a month or so, which, she's a mental health professional, so that's kind of impossible for her to not think. So she turned to podcasts, and she's always been a natural saver, highly unlike myself. But she found Mad Fientist, introduced me to the idea, and then I dove down the rabbit hole head first, and we've been going ever since.
That is such a common thing, I think, for so many of us, is that as soon as you hear about it, it's like your eyes are just open, like you've discovered just something so outside what you're used to that you just want to learn more. I similarly, the Mad Fientist was the first financial independence podcast that I had ever heard. And it was the same thing. It's like, what? People are saving 50% of their salary. People just like me. Like, these aren't just like, self-made millionaires, or, these are people. These are working people. So I love that. I love that the one of the common themes in this community is that we all have this moment of epiphany.
Absolutely.
I also think that it's interesting, unfortunately, her moment of epiphany comes after something that can happen to us at any time if our health is challenged. And it's really nice that she had a temporary health issue and was able to find this whole world, because if she wasn't, this is the type, being in the Fi space, and being prepared for retirement or any lapses in work is one of those lapses could be health related. And so I think that's very interesting that that's when she found it, and it helps you to prepare for any other emergencies that might come up in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's definitely something that we've thought about since then is, we're all one medical disaster away from, financial ruin, unless we happen to be pretty far down our road towards Fi, in which case we are self-insuring ourselves against something like that. And I thought it was really telling that she was able to find such an opportunity out of adversity like that. It was kind of a great stepping stone into Fi that way.
What were some of the things that changed for you both once you discovered the Fi community?
Mainly what we did when we realized that early retirement was an option was we really started to optimize our expenses. We kind of dug into everywhere that money was leaving us, which obviously starts with tracking your expenses. I mean, that's number one right there. And so once we were able to track our expenses properly and kind of see where all our money was going, then it was, okay, well, do we really need to pay a cable bill? No, because we have Netflix and Amazon Prime. And so we ditched the cable bill and just kind of went on from there. It was like a spending optimization snowball, if you will.
Were you and your wife already savings for retirement? Were you already contributing, or did something about that change as well?
Yeah. So my wife was putting a little bit of money into a 403B that she had. She works at a local hospital. I was not doing anything. When we had our son 8 years ago, when my wife was pregnant, she said, we need to save $20,000 before he's born. And so that was kind of the first dip into savings, into almost extreme savings, you could call it, because that was when we decided, okay, we have this number, we need to reach it. We have a very finite time in which to do so. So we had better figure out some ways to do it. And at that point, we were just saving up money for a cushion. We didn't really know what to do with it. Finding that path to FI really meant we knew what to do with our savings now. That was the main thing that we got out of it.
What was the $20,000? Was that just something that she read somewhere, that when you're going to have a child, you might need that type of a cushion?
As far as I know, it's just a number she pulled out of the air. I mean, I think she just wanted to have it.
Well, that might be a new pillar, because that's really awesome.
Yeah, it's been very helpful for sure. It got us on the right track,
And so was that money for him in terms of, was that for the delivery? I know if you don't have a delivery can cost a certain amount of money, or was it for his 529? Was it for him, or just the expenses that come with having a baby and starting the nursery and the diapers and all of that?
It was more of a family-oriented expense savings cushion. We knew that it was going to cost a lot of money. Once we got him home, we were going to have to buy a lot of diapers and all kinds of other stuff. And so, yeah, it was basically just to have a cushion to fall back on if we needed it when we have somebody that takes a lot of money, like a small child.
So how did you do that? If you weren't saving into the retirement accounts before, now you mentioned that she was frugal, I think you said earlier.
Yes.
Or she was already frugal. Okay. So how did that decision that there was now a goal attached to the end of the money or to the money, how did that change your spending habit and your savings habit?
So we saved it in a checking account. We're members of a local credit union, and you get 1.5% interest on it if you make 12 purchases a month with the debit card, and so on and so forth. And so as far as changing our expenses, it was really, she just had to get me to stop buying lunch. And when I was working out in the field, especially when you're working outside on a cold day, you want to have a hot lunch, and so you go to the restaurant next door and you spend $10 on a hot lunch. And so kind of changing my mindset on that was a big part of that. And also just being conscious of where our money was going. I mean, we didn't know really what we were going to do with it, but we just knew that we had to pay attention to where our money was going. And really, I put it in my wife's hands. You want to save this money, that's fine. I'll just stop spending money and you tell me when we get there.
That is awesome.
Were you actively working the trade part of it as much prior to finding FI, or was that something that you stepped up after? So
I became an electrician about 10 years ago. I was in the sign business for a long time, and I was kind of thinking that, I'm standing steady here at $13 an hour, which is decent for now, but as my wife pointed out to me, it's not going to be decent for very long. And so I was kind of thinking that, maybe if I got an electrical license, I could be worth more money to the sign company, because, there are signs that are lit with electricity. And so next thing I know, I start getting emails from the local aftermarket vocational schools. My wife had found out and spread the word around. And so I kind of went into the trade, not with any kind of FI or retirement plan at all. It was more, I just want to do something that can make me a little bit more money, and that seems like it'd be a little bit more fun.
So what are these aftermarket vocational schools?
Yeah, I don't know if that's an actual term. I think that's something I just made up. You see ads, you hear ads on the radio for, if somebody's looking for a career change or something, and you want to go to learn how to be an electrician or a plumber or an HVAC technician or nurse or IT programs and stuff like that. It's not really a degree program. It's more of like an introduction into a trade.
What we're talking about is a trade school.
Yeah, so it's different than like a high school, a vocational high school. So it's basically a vocational high school for people who are past high school.
Got it. Okay. Your wife says to you, it's time to step it up. You're worth more. And she signs you up for some of these vocational school emails or something, or just there's probably more. Did she sign you up for them, or was it like when you start thinking about buying a car and then all of a sudden you see all the car commercials?
No, she definitely signed me up for them.
Oh, okay. I really like her. Okay, so she signs you up for these and you start getting some of them. How did you choose? Because it says that in one of your blog posts that your dad was actually a carpenter and taught you a lot of what he knew. So how did you choose the electrician besides knowing that the sign company might need one? Were you just trying to stay with the sign company?
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking backwards in the sense that I was thinking about staying with the sign company, which didn't make any sense once I had gotten into electrical. But I was also thinking that I wanted to do something that required a little bit more intellect and kind of brain work in the field, but I still like working with my hands. I've always been fairly creative, so I like doing stuff that has some creativity involved. And electrician just seemed to fit the bill the best.
Yeah, I know a couple of electricians. There is an apprentice component to becoming an electrician too, I believe.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about what the process was for you going to this adult vocational school? Was it at night? Was it on the weekends? How many hours was it? And
Sure.
Was it very expensive?
So there's a few different options to do this. So the one that I went to, it was a 1-year program. As an apprentice, you have to get 600 classroom hours. And when I was doing it, it was 8,000 hours in the field, but they've since changed that to 10,000. And you can do maximum 2,000 a year. So for me, it was a 4-year apprenticeship plus the year in the school, and now it's a 5-year apprenticeship. But they do offer different ways of doing the schooling. So for me, I went to this school from 7:30 in the morning till 12:30 in the afternoon. It's a 1-year program, and it cost me $25,000. There's other ways of doing it. And in fact, I recently spoke with the son of my neighbor who lives across the street, and he is an apprentice electrician. And he actually did it through the local community colleges. And what he was doing was he was going in the evening, I think it was 2 nights a week. And he did that for the entire 4 years of his, or I guess 5 years rather, going of his apprenticeship. And he said that is costing him $1,500 a year. So he'll end up spending $6,000, which is quite a bit less than I spent.
Yeah, and that sounds like something if somebody doesn't have any kind of scholarship or anything and does not want to have student loan debt, that might be a really great option, is to just pay for it out of pocket.
Absolutely. And, if you're doing the evening thing, or even when I was doing the morning thing, I was working in the afternoons. I ended up getting a job for a contractor halfway through. And so I was making money while I was doing it. So I was able to pay off the money that I had spent on the schooling. And certainly if you're doing it for $6,000, then you have much more opportunity to pay it off while you're doing it.
That's so great. And I think there's been several articles I've seen floating around the internet lately, how there's such a need for trade sort of jobs, and that it's really a great way to earn a really nice living, and the need is there for it. So there's opportunity on both fronts.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can make some good money doing it. You can incredibly easy to start a side hustle, and you can make really good money on the side. And the country is facing a major shortage of tradespeople because the older generations are retiring out, and people haven't been getting into the trades for 30, 40 years now because it's had a stigma attached. Because it's had a
the stigma, go be a lawyer or a doctor. And as a former lawyer, I had gone to a trade school. Like I often think like, gosh, it would be so awesome and fun to build like iron. So you mentioned it's a great way to have a side hustle. How do you use your skills to bring in extra income?
So I have a business. I'm a sole proprietor as an electrician, which was incredibly easy to do. I got a DBA certificate of doing business as from my local town office. I think that cost me $25. And I got a tax identification number from the government, which cost me $0, and I was in business. And it's been word of mouth. I started out doing jobs for friends and then friends of friends, and now I'm getting phone calls from all over the place, and I've turned down more work than I've taken in the last month. I have too many phone calls.
That's amazing. So how many extra hours would you say that you are investing in the side job?
So it comes and goes. It's kind of interesting based on the season. Like, for example, between December and April, I didn't get a single phone call. And then in one day in April, I got 5 phone calls. And my phone's been ringing off the hook since then. Like I said, from between December and April, I put 0 hours into the business. And then since then, I've put between 4 and 20 hours a week into it. Some weeks I'm just cranking away, and some weeks I kind of ease off a little bit.
And so the title of your blog is DIY to FI. Is the side hustle income that you're making, is that what is helping you in your FI journey, or are there other ways that you're using your skills to aid in your FI journey?
So the skills that I'm using in my side business are definitely helping out quite a bit. And in fact, my wife has also opened up a side business. She's a social worker, and she recently opened up a private practice as a therapist. So we're both kind of using skills that we've developed for our W-2 jobs to bring in some side hustle money. So we're trying to find some other ways that we can make some income. One of those ways that we're about to dip our toes into is rental real estate. And certainly my skills come in very handy with that, because I am looking at houses that are scaring everybody else away, especially if they have knob and tube, which, if anybody has heard of that, they know that their insurance companies freak out when they hear that. So
that's on HGTV a few times.
Yeah, and people run screaming when they see it, and I think it's just fabulous because I can fix that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I saw a house near me that had that, and I was like, "What are these knobs and these?" So yes, just before we move ahead into that, I just wanted to see if you could go over some of the various trades, because I don't think that I know. I mean, I think of carpentry, plumbing, electrician. Are those the main 3, or are there more?
You have plumbing, electrical, carpentry. Obviously, you have painters, HVAC technicians. There's people servicing your boilers, your furnaces, and there's landscapers that are mowing your lawn, and then there's a little bit heavier duty landscapers that are, building stone walls and things like that. There's really quite a few. I don't know off the top of my head what the exact definition of a trade job is, but I would go with basically anything in which you're using your hands to make money, because they all kind of fall under the same umbrella of jobs that can't be shipped overseas.
Yes, absolutely. And then, I'm thinking about if any of our listeners have high school or nearly high school age students, or if they're looking to maybe go back themselves and do what you did. How old do you need to be? And how is that application process? Is it you apply and then you're in, you start the next week?
So when I went, it was, they started a new session every quarter. And so it was basically sign up and they say, okay, the next quarter starts. I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks away when I signed up. So, I waited those 3 or 4 weeks and then I got in on it. As far as age goes, there were people in their late teens, early 20s in my class. There were people in their 40s and 50s in my class. It's totally not age dependent at all. Could be anybody.
Wow, that's awesome.
You mentioned all the ones that I was thinking of, like for construction related, but there's also other different types of trades as well. There's my daughter just completed an extension program, and adding on to that with manicurist, and look at your local community colleges first, because typically the community colleges have a lot of those programs. And if you can start there, you're going to save a lot on your costs.
Absolutely. And you can find some really good teachers at the community colleges as well.
I just think this is such an awesome alternative to both the paths that Wendy and I went down. Your degree cost you $25,000. You found a job midway and could pay it out of pocket. And if you do it the other way, it's costing you $6,000. We both went, my first degree cost me $25,000. And then I went again and again. And in the end, it was $90,000 that I had to dig my way out of, which I did. But One thing that I noticed that's so wonderful about being in the trades is you learn the skills and you possess the skills, and that becomes your hourly pay almost immediately. When we go to college, we get through 4 years and we don't have a tool set. We have a piece of paper and we have to sell our skills. We have to sell our knowledge to get that first job or that first paycheck. And sometimes it's taking people months to get their first job, their first real college related job after they finish. It took you over a year?
Yeah, it took a long time. It took over a year. And so I almost gave up and went and worked in a call center for like 4 months and then finally got a job. Yeah, definitely. There are advantages, job placement, and the need is so high that you don't have to fight for positions if you go a different route.
And the thing is, so before you had the skills, you were being paid $13 an hour. After you had the skills, it seems like your pay could jump to maybe like the $30 to $60 an hour you were saying in one of your posts? Or is that not the normal trajectory?
So it's similar to that. It's basically, while I was an apprentice, I was making pretty low income. And then it's, once you've done all your hours, you can take the test to become a licensed electrician. And this is also the case for plumbers and other licensed trades. And then once you get that license, all of a sudden the value that you represent to the company is at least 2 times what it was before, because now you can go out on your own. When you're an apprentice, you have to have a licensed person working over you and directly overseeing what you're doing. So that day that you get that license, all of a sudden you're worth so much more to the company. So I wouldn't say that it went up. I mean, at least in my case, and I think in most cases, it probably wouldn't go up from 13 to around the 30 range. But what I did see was that I went from the $13 range to the $19.50 overnight. And then from there, it was little raises here and there that have gotten me up to now where I work. I'm right around the $30 range.
Yeah. So you come out of it and you can make about $40,000, high 30s, low 40s, and the thing is you're hourly too. So if you work a little more, you might be able to make a little more, or is your apprentice rate kind of set?
No, I mean, certainly if you do overtime, then you can make a little bit more. And that, different companies probably pay different rates. I think because I was in a non-union shop, this is a whole other ball game, is the union versus non-union. So I was raised in a non-union shop, and you tend not to get the jobs working for the state where you get the prevailing wage, so you don't make quite as much as the union guys, but the union guys tend to get laid off half the year, and so it all kind of evens out in the end. I should also point out too that my side job, where I am sole proprietor, so I am charging about $10 an hour less than the average electrician in my area, and I'm charging $75 an hour, and people are absolutely happy to pay me that.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and the pay increases, and then if you go on to get higher levels of what is it, like a foreman or something for electrician eventually?
So it goes from a journeyman license to a master's license.
Okay, master's. Okay, sorry about that. You could go that route and you could increase your wages that way, or you could have the side hustle and you could increase your wages that way, or you could do both. The other component of this that is kind of what you blog about is that you now have skills that you do not have to pay someone else to do. So that saves you a ton of money. And I'm sure you can maybe barter with other providers, other carpenters, plumbers, and trade skills, or get them at a discount, or learn on the job. So now those houses that people are running away from, you could probably do quite a bit of the work, especially since your dad did teach you a lot of it as well.
Yeah, I'd say it's actually a combination of all of those. Not only do I learn some skills on the job by watching these guys and talking to them, I'm also developing a network of people. So, if somebody who doesn't know any tradespeople says, oh, I need a plumber, who do I call? What do? You go, well, when I was a kid, you go to the phone book, but now you go to Google or you go to Angie's List or whatever, and you choose somebody and you hope they're good. But I have this network of people that I know that I've worked with side by side. So I know how they work. And I know that that they know me and they know how I work and we have mutual respect for each other. And so I know I'm not going to get ripped off. And also, of course, there is that component of, well, I need a plumber, and it just so happens that my plumber needs some electrical work done at his house. So I'll go work at his house for a little while and he'll come work at my house. And I actually, just the other day, I have a friend of mine who's a mechanical engineer. He's also an excellent mechanic, and he fixed my car in exchange for me putting in some outlets in his house.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool.
Network is really invaluable. I know that we do try a lot to do projects ourselves, but there are just some things that we just are not, like electrical or like AC work. And I always hold my breath when we call somebody out. We go on Nextdoor and you try and look at the reviews and make sure that they've all got positive reviews and feedback. But even then, you just don't know. And cringing of, okay, do we trust this person? Is the price that they're giving us fair? Are they going to do good work? And so that network of people is really great. What are some of the projects that you have done yourself in your home?
So I've when we bought our first house, we bought it from a contractor who had bought just a dilapidated piece of junk and flipped it. And so there wasn't really anything for me to do in that house, which I remember being kind of jealous of some friends of ours who moved in across the street because they bought a foreclosure that needed a ton of work. And I was like, oh man, I wish I could do work to my house. Yeah. But a few years later, we ended up buying the house that we're currently in just right down the street. And we bought a dilapidated old pile of junk. Just, it was in a great spot. And so I had some work to do. So in the first 6 weeks that we bought the house, I tore the kitchen out. I tore the bathroom out. I put new floors in throughout, and then a new kitchen, a new bathroom. And none of the bedrooms had light fixtures or switches. So I put switches and light fixtures in. And yeah, that was a pretty good haul those first 6 weeks there. And then since then, we've done a few other things, like we turned the attic into the master bedroom and set up a kind of jungle gym play space for the kids in the basement.
Oh, geez, that is a lot of work. That is awesome, though. I wish I could do that. And I think one of your posts, I didn't read it recently. I read it, I think, a while ago, where you talked about the things that you need, like your basic tools that you need. Can you maybe let us know what are some of the basic things that you should have as a DIYer or a newbie DIYer with a home or an apartment? And then my husband specifically wanted to know, you mentioned maybe buying a couple of tools and trying it yourself instead of maybe paying someone the first time, seeing if you can do it. And then the cost of those tools, you reaping the benefit of those over a number of repairs that you do yourself. So he wanted to know, would you recommend buying something cheaper that you might only use a couple times, or would you recommend really investing in something that's mid or higher level in terms of your tools?
I would say that is based on your level of comfort with tools. If you've never held a screwdriver before, don't go out and buy the best set of screwdrivers that you can find, because you might try it and you might hate it and you might never want to touch them again. And then you spent a whole bunch of money on them. So yeah, the blog post that you're referring to is the tools every homeowner should have. And I kind of have a series going on with that. I'm starting off with the real basics, like a hammer, safety glasses are always good, and a good set of screwdrivers, utility knife, tape measure, and a power drill and a ladder. Those are just things that you can get a lot of work done with just those tools. And that's a great beginner set for somebody to kind of get comfortable around tools. And like I like to say, it's the more time you spend with a tool in your hand, the more comfortable you're going to be with a tool. And then that's going to lead to attacking more complicated projects. And, you stack your skills until you get to the point where you're doing things like installing a floor or putting in a new kitchen.
Where would you suggest that someone start? So let's say there's some project so I'll give a for instance.
My bathroom. How about that one?
So we have some sprinklers out in our front yard that my son ran over, and so the sprinklers are broken. Is YouTube a good place to start to figure out if it's something that you can repair yourself and give it a stab?
YouTube is a great place to go. I have an example for you. Actually, my father-in-law had a TV. He bought this flat screen TV 6 or 7, maybe more years ago, and it started acting up on him. It was, he would turn it on and it would stay on for a few minutes and then it would turn off. And it happened all the time, and it kind of drove him nuts. And he was thinking, I might just have to buy a new TV. And he's looking at spending $1,000 or whatever. And he went on YouTube and did a search on the symptoms that his TV was showing. And he got a whole bunch of videos saying, this happens all the time with this particular model of TV. They put a capacitor in there that's too small. You just have to pull the capacitor out and put this one in instead. And this is how you do it. And so he went online, he bought the capacitor for $6 and he put it in. And it's been working. I think that was 3 or 4 years ago. It's been working ever since.
That's wonderful. I think that's kind of been one of the funnest things that both Curtis and I, and even my children, have discovered since joining this kind of movement is giving it a try, fixing it yourself. And we've been able to do that with so many things. My daughter, somebody sideswiped her and knocked the side mirror off of her car, and we were going to pay somebody to fix it. The body shop, it's like $400. And so instead, we Googled it, we got it on YouTube, we found where we could get a spare side mirror, and we ordered the side mirror. And then my husband was supposed to do it, but he kept taking forever and forever and forever. And finally, she just got so frustrated. My 22-year-old daughter went out there and she fixed her own side mirror, which I thought was amazing. And she did it because she watched YouTube, which is just so awesome. And whereas before we would have probably just, bit the bullet and paid $400 to have the body shop fix the side mirror.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And the side mirror cost $60. So we saved ourselves, over $300.
Right. And the sense of satisfaction that your daughter got from doing that was enormous, I'm sure.
What are some of the projects that you have completed that have given you the most value?
So, my first car, and I'm not really a car person. I don't know a whole lot about cars or how to fix them. But my first car, my father bought me a car for $300. It was a 1986 Subaru sedan, and it had a bad clutch. So we had to change the clutch. And my father's, he's an old Yankee hippie. He's been doing everything himself forever. I call him OG Fi. He's been living this life for the last 40 years, but he has no idea about it. I tell him about it. He's like, wow, hey, yeah, people are finally starting to get it. And so he and I spent a summer replacing the clutch on this car, which was just an insane project to try to tackle for two guys that don't really know a whole lot about fixing cars. But we did it. And this was before the days of YouTube. We had one of those mechanic books that you get that has the exploded views of all the parts of the car and stuff. And we plugged away, and by golly, we had a functioning car by the end of the summer for $600 total.
And such a great memory. I know you mentioned building the 4-story treehouse. Is that what you said, 4-story?
Yes.
Okay, because I was like, what? It's like Treehouse, what is it called? Treehouse Wars or something on TV? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, we should have been on that.
So when you talk about your dad and him being OG Fi, I did have a question about that. So one of the things that I know you probably have covered is your health insurance, because you work at a college and your wife works for a company, and then you both have the side jobs. For somebody who is like your dad, a carpenter or a solo entrepreneur with no W-2 income, is the health insurance a big topic within your area, or is there something that's offered to tradesmen that help you cover those healthcare costs? And then I have a question about, your dad, things that carpenters and other tradesmen can do as they begin aging to protect their business or change their business and grow with the business. So how about the health insurance first?
Sure. Yeah. So that is definitely the elephant in the room. I don't have any great answers. I mean, that's so. I'll tell you that the main reason I have not left my day job and gone out on my own right now is health insurance, because it's an uncertainty, and I need to speak with people who know a lot more about it than I do, so I can figure out the numbers. What is it going to cost me? How much do I have to work? How much money do I have to bring in every month to cover health insurance costs before I am able to comfortably go out on my own? Because right now I am the one supplying insurance for the family through my day job. So that's not an easy answer in any way. And my father is fortunate. He was in the Army when he was 18. He went to Vietnam, and he's certainly not fortunate about that, but he has really been given some fantastic opportunities from that, in the sense that he has health insurance covered through the VA. He got a Purple Heart while he was over there. He got wounded, and so he has full medical coverage through the VA, and his wife does too, actually. So yeah, he's totally set.
Were it not for that uncertainty of the health insurance, do you believe into doing what you do?
Absolutely. If I was able to really nail down a number and the number was reasonable, I would definitely go full time on my own. I mean, I'm looking toward doing that anyway. I'm just trying to figure out how to make it happen at this point.
It seems like the healthcare is the FI issue, and it's just an issue all around because it is so connected to work here in the United States. In terms of the other aspects of managing your own side business, or eventually maybe managing your own full-time business, is there any teaching in the programs about accounting, taxes, business filings, or did you have to find out how to get the DBA, how to file for the tax ID, and how to do the tax components on your own?
Oh yeah, there was none of that in the programs. They only teach you, basic apprentice skills and how to get into the code book, and that's there's no financial education at all. So the other question, Wendy, that you asked was about, as tradespeople get older and trying to protect their bodies and their businesses.
I was saying my husband's uncle actually laid carpet. He was a carpet or flooring person, and so now his knees are damaged just from over time and injury. And so he's to the point where it's very difficult for him to work on his knees when he's doing the flooring, and he's had to slow down quite a bit. What are some of the things that you can do to protect your body while working with it? This is for cosmetology. My sister she's in a salon on her feet all day. Barbering. This is for all of the trades, because you're using your body to make your money.
Absolutely. And that is definitely something to think about while you're out in the field. I know what I heard was electricians have a lot of hip problems because we tend to carry these pretty heavy tool belts around all day. And so, I mean, I think the best thing for that is to try to go for FI. I mean, if you can get to the point where you can work a 10-year career and not have to destroy your body anymore, well, now we're talking. Because I see it all the time in the older tradespeople. Once you hit 45, 50, 55, around that area, they start moving a lot slower. They start making a lot more noises when they sit down and stand up. And it definitely takes a toll on your body. So certainly being conscious of that while you're working, and then also trying to keep the highly active portion of your career as short as possible, I think is crucial to your health.
Yeah, very good tips, both to really be thinking about how you're going to be saving during those. So Tinian going to be saving during those. So Tinian going to be, is that right?
I do, although I haven't written for it for quite a while now.
What was that about?
So that was lifeoutsidethebox.me. And that was the first blog I ever started. And that was just kind of a way for me to rant about parenthood and I don't know, anything else that kind of came to mind.
Have you found a way kind of to marry maybe the two blogs, and do you bring any of that over into the DIY to FI blog at all?
I certainly think that I kind of cut my writing teeth with this first blog. So I definitely bring some of that with me. I've been thinking a little bit more about that blog lately, just because kind of getting myself into a niche here with this DIY-to-Fi. And I do go a little bit general with it. I tend to have some rants here and there, but it's still a bit of a niche. And this other blog that I have is totally open. I just write whatever I feel like, and I don't really care if anybody reads it or not. It's just fun to write it, and I know that my mom's reading it, and that's about it. So it's kind of fun in that sense that I can just be totally free about it. So it's a good outlet, really.
As a parent, as a family on the journey to 5, are there any special considerations that you have as a parent on this journey, as opposed to maybe, the single engineer or the couple without children? What do you think are some of the common challenges that us parents have?
I think daycare is going to be the absolute top challenge. I mean, that's a huge expense. I have some friends of mine who they both work 9-to-5 jobs, and they are spending a ton of money on daycare for their 2 kids. Something that my wife and I have done is she works Monday and Thursday during the day, and then she has her private practice that she does in the evening. So, Monday and Thursday, we have to take care of some childcare during the summer. We're actually fortunate enough that our oldest is in school, so he's taken care of for the day. Our youngest has 1 more year of preschool left, so we're still paying for that this year, but then she's in kindergarten next year, and it's free in our town, which is great. But one thing that we've found to help with daycare costs is the dependent care assistance program, which my employer offers. And I think it's your employer has to offer it. The employer reimburses the employee for money spent. And so basically what it is, it's a tax-free bucket for me to put money in pre-tax and then pay for daycare costs with that money without it ever being taxed, which is really nice. The one caveat with it is that you have to decide at the beginning of the year how much money you're going to spend, and you put all that amount into this bucket. If you don't use it, you lose it. So you do have to be careful about how much you put in there. And there's also the HCAP, the Healthcare Assistance Program, which is similar to that. It's you put money in this bucket, and then you can spend it on healthcare costs tax-free, which is great. But again, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, I use the dependent care. It is awesome. And I didn't use it, but we have a 4-year-old now. And so if I did use it with my older child, it was a while ago, it's much easier than I thought it was going to be. And I think much easier than it was before. They take the money out the same way they do with a 457, 403B, 401k. They put it aside and then they reimburse you. And it only takes them a little bit of time to reimburse you, maybe the next pay period or even, in between pay periods. They reimburse you for the money that you've taken out that pay period. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's a really great program.
It actually saved us a lot to do it that way because we had 4 children, four of them. Wow. 4 of the 6 were all little at the same time. So it was less expensive for me to have an in-home nanny come to our home than it was to put them all into daycare at the same time. So I never really looked into that, and I probably should have, because I probably could have saved myself some money this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. That's definitely still qualifies.
It does still qualify. I actually think that a nanny, it's any provider, I believe.
Really? Yeah, and it's not just for children. Actually, I was just reading up on this the other day. It's any dependent. If you have an ill parent that you're taking care of, or you have like a adult child that you're taking care of. Yeah, any dependent.
I may have to check into that again, because I haven't had to. We've got 1 little boy left. He's 4, and he'll be starting kinder next year. But I have tried to work it so I don't have to put him in daycare. But I really need to work more. So I'm thinking I've got to figure out a way to put him into daycare at least a few days a week. Awesome. We are nearing the end of our time. That flew by. So we do have some final questions to the end. And the first one is, what was one lesson that you learned about money or finances, good or bad, growing up, that you have carried over into your FIRE journey?
I was scratching my head for a while over this one. Honestly, I can't think of a single one. I never really talked about money as a kid. I didn't talk about it with my parents at all. I didn't really question them on any money issues. I didn't think about it at all. Not that we had a ton of money. It's just, it wasn't a topic of conversation that came up ever.
Do you think that will be different with your children?
Oh, it already is. Yeah. We talk with our kids all the time. I opened up a bank of mom and dad recently for my son who's 8. And so what I told him was, every month we're going to check out what you have in your bank and I will give you 5% interest. I've since lowered that amount because it's gotten a little out of hand, but got him in the right thing.
Out really quick.
Exactly. Yeah.
So is there one lesson that you would hope to convey to your children and have them carry that over into their adulthood?
Yeah, I really want them to be able to recognize the power of money as an intermediary. And, you can use money to your advantage if you're smart with it. And it represents choice. I know I think it's Miss Montana Money Adventures. Is that the name of the blog? I've heard her on a few podcasts. Yeah, she's fantastic. And she talks about how money represents choice. And that's something I really want my kids to be cognizant of is, you can buy cool stuff with money or you can buy freedom, which is just so much better than any gadgets. Along that same vein, I also really want them to be able to appreciate the level of privilege from which they came. Yes. My parents were poor when I was a kid. And they worked themselves up. And, my wife and I we're certainly not wealthy yet, but we're starting off a lot better than our parents were when we were, when our parents had us as small children. So having our small children grow up in a house that's much better off, I want them to recognize that they're coming from privilege. We have no needs that go unmet, which is just really such a fortunate position to be in.
I love that so much because it is something that we're already in such a privileged nation where the majority of us, even the worst of us, a lot of the world. And so recognizing that privilege is just so important. It goes to the compassion and empathy and service that we give others.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are the best ways for someone to find you?
So they can go to DIY to FI. That's DIY2FI.com. I post there every Monday and Thursday. And I can also be found fairly active on Twitter at DIY Captain. And I'm also on Facebook, but that's under Tinian Crawford. You can certainly find me there occasionally. But probably Twitter, I'm most active there. I have an Instagram account in which I haven't posted anything yet because I haven't figured out how to use Instagram. But so I'd say Twitter or the blog is the best ways.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Tania. This was a lot of fun. And I think was really fun is that we got to cover some topics that we hadn't covered yet. And I love your perspective. I look forward to watching you on your fire journey.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
Well, we're almost to the end of our show, but before we get there, we have another winner of Amy Coit's book, Kids' Money Habits. Thank you, Joyful Mama times 7. Joyful Mama times 7. I felt right at home listening to Wendy and Tamika. I am inspired to get my financial affairs in order. Especially as a single mom, I can go by flying of the seat of my pants forever. Thank you. Well, Joyful Mama times 7, we appreciate you and we're so glad that you are getting something out of the show. We especially are grateful to you as a single mom for listening to the show because you're exactly the demographic that we were hoping to reach. We believe that everyone can reach FI, and that especially puts single moms and dads in the group as well. So Joyful Mama times 7, please shoot us an email at info@houseoffi.com to claim your book. Well, House of Fi family, that brings this episode to a close. We appreciate you listening. And if you've enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on iTunes. To show our appreciation, for every 5 reviews we receive, we will reward that listener with one of our favorite reads. And you can find out what that is in our show notes. Don't forget to also send us an email with your review screen name so that we can track who has left a review. Our hope for this show is that we have both inspired you and provided you with practical tools to aid you in your journey to financial independence. We welcome your feedback, and you can do that in one of 3 ways. You can message us on our website, houseoffi.com, through the contact page. You can also leave a voice message there. The final way is that you can send us an email at info@houseoffi.com. We read every message. Once again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you back here next week.